Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have my Victober TBR. Victober is a month-long read-along hosted by Katie of Books and Things, Kate Howe, Roz of Skelly Dandling about the books, and Marissa of Blatantly Bookish, and if you ask me to try and remember the other six, then I am incredibly apologetic. There are many hosts for Victober this year in celebration of it being its 10th year. I could not believe it had been 10 years of Victober this year, nor could I believe that I had been on this platform for 10 years last month, or that Doris had been out for 10 years. There are many things celebrating a decade this year. Because there are so many hosts, there are a whole host of prompts as well. And again, I'm not going to recite them all here. Why? Because I copied them onto my computer and left that downstairs, and because I'm lazy, and because I doubled up for quite a few of those challenges. In preparation for this year's Victober, I went back and I watched my old videos detailing the books that I planned to read, and in doing that I discovered that there are actually quite a few that I've said that I was going to read and then I haven't done. And because of that, they're the ones that I am focusing on this year. Those are the books that are going to make up the bulk of my Victober reading, hopefully. Let's begin with this year's group read, which is Hester by Margaret Oliphant. I read a very, very short story by this author either last year or the year before, which I believe was a prima to the Cranford Chronicles, and I intended to try and find those tales, and I didn't. I don't know much about Hester, but I have been wanting to read Margaret Oliphant for a while, as I'm sure a lot of other readers have who are interested in Victober and Victorian literature. So this is probably a book that I'm going to try and prioritise, because I know that in the past I have allowed the group reads to fall by the wayside. Now I'm just going to run through all of the books. The first book is one that embarrasses me, really, for the number of TBRs that it has been on and the number of times that I haven't read it, and that is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I was meant to read this book for sixth form, and I didn't. I had this on a few TBRs, but the last one I can remember it being on and having looked was October 2021, and I still haven't read it. I could not tell you how far I got into the book when I was listening to it way back when, but I'm hoping that having the physical copy in front of me is going to inspire me to actually read the thing. I do like these Alma Classics editions, so maybe that'll inspire me to read it as well. This edition came into the charity shop and I just thought, maybe it's a sign from the universe that it's time to read this book. I had also intended to read a George Eliot possibly this year, because I have yet to read anything by her. I've started Middlemarch a few times. I had Silas Marner out in the library at one point, and I mentioned all of this to a friend of mine, and she said how I'd meant to read Romola years ago, and I did consider finding that book and reading that this year, but it is an incredibly hefty tome, and while I've been enjoying bigger reads this year, I thought I need to prioritise the books that I already own, that I've said that I'm going to be reading a lot. Romola would have suited the historical prompt this year, but I had a book that I thought would suit that, which is Barnaby Rudge by Charles Dickens, and it has been a while since I actually read Dickens. Now I am conflicted, because last year I recorded a video in which I said that I was going to read Little Dorrit, that Little Dorrit would be the next book of Dickens that I read. Also last year I found that I actually made it a lot further than I thought I had originally, which was 214 pages in. I've also since discovered that this might have a change in social status, which is one of the prompts for this year. So part of me thinks, do I prioritise reading Little Dorrit so I actually do what I said? Because this is the Dickens book that I've owned the longest, as in from my own collection, because I have the little red editions that my great-grandparents well, they didn't give them to me, they died, that I inherited from my great-grandparents, and I never read those because of how severely water damaged they were. And this was the first Dickens novel that I ever actually went out and bought when they announced the TV adaptation with Claire Foy all those years ago. And I have yet to read it, so part of me thinks, yes, let's prioritise this. But then I do want to fulfil that historical prompt, and people have told me of certain things that happen within Barnaby Rudge that make it sound like it might be something I would enjoy. So I don't know what to do. Do I just try and read 2 Dickens this month? Let me know what you think. I haven't read either of them before, and I would like to get some Dickens read. And also, actually, they both fulfill the prompt that I got for the colour wheel, which I got the colour black, and, well, they both have black. So just, you know, let me know what you think. Do I try and read both? I've just realised there's a thing about short fiction, a prompt to read something that isn't a novel, so a play, short fiction, non-fiction. And I was saving a non-fiction book at the charity shop, but then something happened and the book that I was saving has disappeared, and I don't know whether it'll be found before October begins. And I remembered that I got Sketches of Young Ladies, Young Gentlemen and Young Couples by Charles Dickens. So do I just make this the year of Dickens? Is that something I try? I don't know. Because I also have Cranford and Other Stories by Elizabeth Gaskell. I don't know how I came to have this. I don't know if my friend Joy gave it to me, but Charlie and I have talked about reading Lois the Witch together this year. So it could be the year of Dickens and Gaskell, 2 authors who I've read in the past but have maligned over the last few years. Otherwise, for a short story, I do have a classic Christmas crime stories. It might be a bit early to use that C word, but there are a couple in here that are from the Victorian times, and there is an author I've been meaning to read for a while. Or have I read them already? Anyway, there's an author from that period who has a story in here, and I might read that. Then we have another book that I think I put on my TBR last year, and I'm hoping fits the fantastical for Roy's prompt, because I know that Roy mentioned the book She by H. Rider Haggard, but I have King Solomon's Mines, and this is the Reader's Digest edition. After my granddad's death, I was given all of these Reader's Digest books, and I've read a few of them, but I've never read King Solomon's Mines, simply because when I was younger I thought it was a religious text, and now that I'm older and I found out what it's about, I'm so annoyed that I didn't read it when I was a child, because I know from the blurb that this is the sort of story that I would have enjoyed. I'm also hoping it might be one of those that mentions Empire, just to suit Roz's theme as well. Theme? Prompt, honestly. Words fail me. You wouldn't know that English is my first language. Then for the education prompt. Having finally read The Last Chronicle of Barset, I feel like I can move on and read some more varied Anthony Trollope books. And so I chose Dr. Wortle's School. And this is a rather short one. This edition is only 200 pages, and so might be one of the earlier books that I get out of the way, because who doesn't like to read a rather short book at the beginning of Victober? I know that I do. It's one of those things that I try and do, is to read the shorter books in the beginning, because I feel like it gives me more time to finish the longer ones then, and also like I'm actually achieving something if I'm like 2 days into Victober and I've already finished a title. I don't know if that will be happening this year, because Victober begins on a Wednesday and I am in work, and then I have Poems and Pints in the evening. But I will have the Thursday morning and the Friday afternoon to read, so you never know. The final book I have here is Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. I might have got this one because of her being an underrated female writer from the Victorian period, and I'm guessing that she's only underrated by me because I've yet to read her, but I have been meaning to read this book for an incredibly long time, and so when I saw that this was at the library, I borrowed it. I'm hoping that this might be one of those more fast-paced Victorian reads that reminds me of a modern thriller. Some of these sensation novels that I've read in the past have done that, and I've moved through them remarkably quickly. However, I have to say that now I am quite ancient and my reading habits have changed, I found that for some reason, like, if I just knuckle down, I can get these books finished. I think in the past I was so reticent to read Victorian fiction because it took me longer. You know, you had to get used to a new vernacular. I couldn't read them as quickly as I could read a modern piece of fiction, so I'd push them to the wayside. But now I don't know if I've got used to it, but I find myself able to finish them faster than I used to be able to. Saying that, I do have some incredibly hefty books here. I actually have more like piles of possibilities in my room that I could go to. You know, I have more Dickens titles. I have all of Anthony Trollope's books to look at, and then I've got some on my shelf. And then audiobooks. I've got quite a few audiobooks that I could be getting to as well. And sometimes I have been the reader in the past who's listened to the audiobooks on the way to work. I don't know if I'm going to be that person this year. And this isn't even all of the books that I want to read in October. Naturally, I have got tons and tons of modern titles that I want to read. Anyway, I just realised I didn't actually tell you what any of these books were about, but do you want to know why? Because I don't know. I know that Little Dorrit has Amy Dorrit, and as far as I got into it last time, she was still in a debtor's prison, but I'm pretty sure she ends up having some sort of fortune thrust upon her. I know that Barnaby Rudge is set during the riots in 1780, and it is a mysterious tale of long unsolved murder with a romance involving forbidden love, treachery and heroism, and abounds in memorably strange, comic and grotesque characters. Well, I love Dickens grotesque, so we'll see. North and South, I don't know. Isn't it just kind of like Pride and Prejudice with a few A-up mates thrown in there? I've no idea. Cranford, I've read. The other stories I ain't done did do. Dr. Wortle's School, or Wortle's, I don't know, but is it about Dr. Wortle or Wortle and he has a school? Maybe. King Solomon's Mines, do you want to know something? Not too much about King Solomon. That's about it. That's about it. And this one, sensational, supposedly. Supposedly sensational. That should be the title of my memoir. Anyway, them's the books. If you think that I should prioritise any of those books over others, then let me know in the comments. And similarly, also, let's discuss whether I should try reading all of the Dickens, the Little Dorrit, the Barnaby Rudge. Should I do it? Should I try it? Like, part of me thinks, like, the more I smile and the more I think about this, that I definitely should, but then another part of me knows me, recognises that I'm already looking at this darn book, seeing that it is 826 pages and wondering, do I really want to try all that against this darn thing that is 650? You know? Like, they're big books, and I have my annual trip to Whitby, but I'm not going to be doing much reading. I took books away to read last year, and I think I read a grand total of 100 pages, so we'll see. I've also got a sibling's wedding at the end of the month. Ugh. If you'd told me 10 years ago I was going to develop a life, then I wouldn't have believed you. And now it's here, I'm kind of like, oof, what do I do? But for now, yeah, I'm going to disappear. I am going to think about my excitement for Victorian literature a bit and see how I get on. What are you reading for Victober? Are you reading any of these? Do you want to maybe read them together? Don't hold me to that though, because I am terrible at buddy reading. Ask anybody on this platform who's attempted to in the past. I hope that you've got something out of this video despite or besides sheer boredom, because until next time, that is all.